3, 2, 1, and we're off. Hey, this is Jase Dree from Deathproof CrossFit. Doing the first of what we hope are going to be a myriad of information sharing sessions via this kind of podcast format. We're going to talk about anything and everything to do with gyms, fitness, health, healthy lifestyles over the next few weeks, months, years. Who knows how long it's going to be. But for right now, here in the first one, we're going to use this as a way to reconnect with our original audience, which was the Deathproof CrossFit members, athletes, and then hopefully expose ourselves, not literally, to some of the new folks so that they could see what it is that we do and how we run our gym and how we live our lives and how you can do the same thing if you want to have this much fun. And you can tell by the look on Dree's face that she is just loving life right now. So, what's been going on since the last time? So, let's wind back to kind of T0 for all of this. And some fuckwit next door has just set fire to his carpet building. What have we been doing since then?
Sorting through insurance.
All that boring stuff, got the paperwork done and out of the way for the most part, right? What about, tell us a little bit about the Rocksteady Boxing program and where that is right now.
So, Rocksteady Boxing is a boxing program for people with Parkinson's disease. And when the gym burned down, that was one of my biggest concerns, is what are we going to do with this program. The week of the fire, we got a call from the pastor of the First United Methodist Church here in Columbus, and he opened up their fellowship hall for us to run the Rocksteady Boxing program there. Some of the other affiliates pitched in, got us a few punching bags and some equipment, and we were up and running that in about 10 days, which was good.
Yeah, phenomenal, really. And we still have uncashed checks, right, for equipment that really only makes sense to put into a new permanent gym setting. So we
and I don't want to take up their whole fellowship hall with
right, cause
with martial arts equipment.
Well, Paul will get a hernia as well, right? So the facilities guy, Paul, at First United Methodist, has been getting the equipment out for us, helping us put it away, and a lot of these boxing stations they have a water-filled base, and it holds 50 gallons or something like that. So
I have to sled push it to get it
so
back
before
in the
Paul
corner.
gets a hernia, we first of all we couldn't buy any more equipment just now, and then we need to get to a new spot where he doesn't have to push all of that around every Wednesday.
Well, it's been completely awesome being able to run that. I think those people are ready to get back into their gritty boxing gym as well.
So Rocksteady Boxing is all set away. That program is running as just like it should. What about what have we been up to? Just from our gym burned down, right? And our gym is not just a place that we give classes. It is the place that we work out. So what's been happening since the fire in terms of your own fitness? What have you been?
The world is my gym right now.
Nice.
It's hashtag it.
So specifically, what goals did you set yourself?
I used to kind of do a whole lot of big things in 1 year, and since
what kind of big things?
Ironman, ultramarathon, out of state marathons.
So big, fat, hairy, audacious goals, right?
Yeah, and since we opened in 2013, we've kind of had to scale back on that for ourselves.
Yeah. So scaling back this is not normal people scaling back. So you have scaled yourself back to just
One kind of cool thing a year.
no, that's bullshit. So we got you guys have been doing the Dino series, right? So I've had
That's
you.
kind of local though. It's within the state.
Whoa. So so you can describe this in two ways, right? So one is my gym burnt down, so I started doing some running, and I entered a few races, some of which were trail races that are organized by Dino. Another way of stating that in this situation is that we took 3 weightlifters with none to very little running experience, and those 3 weightlifters are currently
leading the series in our age groups.
In their age groups.
But we're turning up every time.
Yeah, well, I've noticed that. I noticed Conor McGregor in the fights where he's been victorious always turned up. Right, that is beyond the basic fundamental elements of table stakes, yeah. Right? It's like, so yes, you have to turn up in order to win something.
We had signed up for this series before the gym burned down. It was just, we went and ran that crazy-ass thunderstorm race.
Yeah.
Last year.
Oh, that was the last series, yeah.
Yeah. And then, so this year we said, let's do the whole series and try and do well in the series or do well in our age group or whatever. But it's for an awesome cause. The series raises money for trail maintenance in Indiana.
Right.
So if you enjoy getting out in Brown County and having a run or having a ride, you're welcome.
So what's a typical price for this kind of endeavor, right? Because some people are just, I don't have enough money to do something new.
There's 6 races and 2 bonus races. Was $130.
$130 for basically 8 races.
Right.
Right. So, what is that? You're looking at 15 bucks.
Yeah.
Kind of per race, right? And the training that goes with it.
And the gummy bears that go.
Which is free, right? Because we live right next to Brown County, so you got some of the best trail running in the world, like literally on your doorstep. Okay, so you've been running trail races. So just as the gym was burning down, we were into week 2 or 3 of the Resolution Challenge 2018, the Lurong Living Challenge.
No, it was week 1.
It was week 1?
Yeah.
Okay, it was week 1. So we got week 1 out of the way. And we continued with that series, begging, borrowing, and stealing. We didn't do as well as we have previously done on things like videography, which was difficult to do. So at this point, a big shout out to CGX CrossFit in Bargersville and Mad City CrossFit down in Madison, who let us do workouts at their facilities, which is sometimes really intrusive to set up and do a different workout than the coaches are trying to run and allow you to do that at times that clash with their own schedule. So that was awesome. So thanks to Nick Forey and Jay Roney and
Jen Binkley
for letting us in and using their spot. We also got to work out at Hoosier CrossFit with Jenna and Sean Tiemann. So we were through week 1. We kept on doing the workouts.
Yes.
And what was the results?
We won. Our gym won first overall small teams.
For the second time. First overall small teams. Second time in succession.
Right.
Yeah, so second time in succession. We had first overall Masters male in this little fat guy. have. We won so many of the workouts. There was a Deathproof name or 4 in every workout. It was a really good team effort. We won by quite a bit, which is individual winners are great. That's it's always nice to win prizes and that kind of stuff. But I think the small teams prize is a huge deal, because that's an admission by the natural world that you know what you're doing as an organization in order to take large numbers of people and to profoundly and fundamentally change their level of fitness and level of health in a very short space of time. So we're taking 10 plus people in a matter of 5 weeks and losing, I think on average we lost something like 16 pounds. We had up
ish. Yeah.
We had in the high 20s, and not all of these people were as fat as I was, so it was kind of, I had a little more to lose than most people did, but that's the thing that I'm really proud of, is it tells you that you have not only that your systems are right, that everything is working as you describe it, but that you are able to do it better than anybody else in the country over that period, twice in succession. That's a huge deal. And so it's nice to be recognized as having a coaching organization that really knows its stuff, which is very cool. And we're also in the thick of this again, right? So right now we're in week 4.
This is the last week.
This is the final week of the summer challenge. We didn't have enough people to get a full team together, so we don't have people in small teams. Aside from which, one of our team had a dropout, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But we still have good representation from you. You're close to the top of the leaderboard, if not at the top, for Women's Open, right? And looking good for improvement, because you knocked the pounds off as well as probably improving your performance. And you were kind of fortunate that you were at a artificially low level of fitness when we started, just because we hadn't had a gym for a while. So it's been there's been a good opportunity for you to put in improvement there, which often it's the improvement that is the deciding factor in these kind of competitions.
I've still been working out, though.
You've still been working out? Because what else have you been doing?
Well, I'm a traveling CrossFitter now.
Traveling CrossFit. Yeah. Spending a lot of time on the bike. Why is that?
I'm on a New Year's. I'm not much of a resolutioner, but on New Year's Eve, my friend Vanessa Cunningham and I decided that we were going to do rain this year.
What is that?
It is a 160-mile bike ride from Terre Haute to Richmond, Indiana.
Right.
So you ride through Indiana on, what is it, US 40?
Mm-hmm.
And
which we've already determined today has 2 donut stops.
2 donut shops on US 40. So we'll have to stock up. I'm a little nervous about this because it's unknown to me. I've done 112 miles, but there's a big difference between 112 and 160. Shit, there's a big difference between 100 and 112.
Right, you don't have to run a marathon at the end of it.
I don't know. I was looking forward to running a marathon at the end of that bike ride.
I think I'd rather do 160 miles on a bike than somebody say, hey, you can get off it. Well, no, I remember that feeling as well.
There's something that's
when you get 112
comforting.
miles and somebody walks up to you and says, hey, you can get off that bike if you can run a marathon, right? Then your ass is saying, okay.
There's a little bit of comfort that comes with putting your feet on the ground. in an Ironman
Yeah.
or a triathlon.
I guess it depends on the
you know.
on the ship.
It's
that
like
you're in.
once you're there, that's
And so so we got rain on July something.
21st.
Okay. And the kids have been busy as well. So Layla has recently begun her stint on the swim team at
She's joined Donner Swim Club.
And Kella has been hitting his face against the planet as hard as he can in the form of BMX, which is kind of exciting. That's been
Awesome.
awesome, yeah, and as much of a roller coaster profile as the rhythm section of the track. It's been really neat because I had a BMX when I was a kid, but me and my friends were all, we were relatively poor, so we were never going to get like a really nice BMX. And there was one kid in town had a PK Ripper, and I would have given my left nut for that bike. And as luck would have it, here we are, 30 years on, a little more, and the PK Ripper is still available, and that's why we got Kella.
After his red line
after
burned
his
up
red
in the
line
fire.
burned up the gym, with the rest of the Christmas gifts. So he's been riding this legendary bike. First time out on the track, smacked his face into the track. Second time out on the track, got around. Third time, smacked his face on the track. Right? But it seems when you learn painfully, you can sometimes learn quickly. And his last qualifying ride, he won. And that put him in the
main event,
and he won that as well, which was awesome. So
just triple points for the USA BMX.
Points are awesome. We love points. So that's what he's been doing. So you guys have been keeping pretty fit. Me not so much. So I have been following the Lurong dietary guidelines mostly, not as tight as I would if I was in the running for the competition. And the reason for that is I had to pull out after the first workout because I got shingles all up under my armpit and across my chest, which is shingles is a lot of fun. If you've never had shingles, I highly recommend it. And then a couple of weeks ago now, managed to completely separate my biceps from my radius. So I had a total distal rupture of the biceps, which gave rise to this. So this is not experimentation with a new heroin regimen, much as it might seem from my appearance. Those are actually surgical scars.
There should also be a cast on there, but when I got home
there was
steady boxing yesterday, he had cut his cast off.
So casts are there for a reason, and when the purpose of the cast is no longer required, it should be removed. So
at your follow-up appointment next week.
No, not everybody heals at the same rate, right? And the thing about this kind of an injury is the biggest challenge is range of motion, right? So that means if you're gonna do something like remove the cast in order to get better range of motion, that you're playing a game against. At least in my mind, you're playing a game against comfort, because if you're going to allow further range of motion and you want to be careful about it, you can't have painkillers to the extent that most people would require them. So you can't walk around all day doped up on hydrocodone and not feel any damage that you may be able to do. So right now my arm is fucking killing me, and I'm very aware of it, which is a good thing. But I'm also able to start the muscle with short range of motion exercises. It's every day it's getting better, of course. And it kind of sucks, right? It always knocks you back a little bit, but there are always things that you can be doing to improve your health. So in the absence of left arm action, and not being able to work on the house as a result, then we're having to do, there's more work in other directions. One of those is nutrition, and I've dropped, I weighed this morning, I've dropped 21 pounds since the start of the Luron competition. So which is a vast improvement in health, vast improvement, and it comes with it improvements like decreasing blood pressure, and of course you're sending your insulin in the right direction, and the fundament of good health is good nutrition, and so anything that puts more emphasis on that is a good thing. It's a shame that there's that much of a detractor in terms of functionality, and I can't work out as hard as I want to, but there's time for that. It'll come back. And it forces me into a slightly different regimen, which is also a good thing, because you tend to stay, routine is a great thing, habit is a great thing in order to maintain your health and fitness, but it can put you into a rut. So while I've been lifting heavy weights and doing this consistently, it has resulted in a particular type of body composition, as it has to, and it also results in a particular schedule, and now that schedule can't be met, so I'm having to go in another direction, which means that my next, this is a 6-month injury to go back to full strength, so I need something that will get me fit and healthy without using so much strength and speed and power in this part of my body. So I get to choose different sports to put emphasis on. And one of the things, like I said previously about that BMX bike, I always wanted one of those bikes. I always wanted to race BMX. We never had the facilities, and now I do. So as stupid as it sounds, at nearly 50 years old, I'm going to start riding BMX, which means I'm going to start racing BMX, because I'm a competitor, right? I like to compete. And
we have an awesome track
Yep.
here in Columbus that we did not know about.
Right, which doesn't get highlighted enough, and we're going to be able to kind of put it front and center, because, when I say I like to compete, you bandy that term around all the time, and basically, for most people, when you hear somebody say, I'm competitive, it means I'm a fucking whining crybaby, and I don't like to get beat. Well, whoop-de-fucking-do. Who does like to get beat? It's a sign of a liar or a moron that says that they enjoy getting beat. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the feeling of having to push harder beyond your comfort zone because the person next to you is pushing you to do so. All right? Or whether internally you are pushing yourself to do so. That's the feeling that I enjoy. And sometimes it results in you winning, and most times it results in you not winning. And you may only come 30th. Hell, you want to find out to feel what it's like you've won when you win nothing? Go do an Ironman, right? And tell go watch one. Go stand at the finish line and watch how jubilant the people are who have taken part, who have competed, regardless of the fact that they haven't won. Watch the Ironman World Championships and look at how happy the guy in second place is, not because he came second, but because he competed and managed to finish the event. Right? These are this feeling that everybody should chase in their lifetime, and as early as possible, because it is addictive, and it's very educational, and it always promotes health. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's intellectual, but once you garner that feeling, it's difficult to let go of. So BMX is in my future. We have more trail running. Dree bought me a mountain bike for my birthday. So it was not. I used to have a nice carbon fiber mountain bike, but you got to understand, it was almost 40 years old
didn't even know they
Which
made
is
mountains back then.
Which is like Roger Bannister saying, like, man, I've got this kick-ass penny farthing, right? And I'm going bicycle racing. So now I have a modern mountain bike, and as much as that was a carbon fiber mountain bike that I had, it was really old technology, and it doesn't work anywhere near as well as this new thing does, and and I'll miss it, even though it was the wrong size. But I love my new one. It's all kinds of fun. So we'll try some of that. Of course, none of these things, BMX, mountain biking, trail running, none of these things come without consequences if you get it wrong. That to me always adds a little bit to the sport. I don't relish these kinds of injuries, but I'm not going to shy away from an activity just because you could end up losing a finger or something like that. Life without that kind of risk is really not worth living in my mind. So shingles and biceps, and that pretty much brings us up to date on what we've been doing physically. So what's the near future hold? What have been doing in the yard lately?
We had some concrete poured
And why did we have concrete poured?
to hold some classes here until our building gets started.
Booyah. So, it's not easy to find a building for a CrossFit gym.
Oh my gosh.
They have to have all the right elements. Just from a facilities perspective, you've got to have a wheelchair accessible, heated, cooled building where the neighbors don't mind you playing gangster rap from 5:30 in the morning till 8:30 at night, with somewhere to run,
with the right zoning
and the right rent, and with a landlord that
won't burn your place down.
That won't burn his place down, and no, maybe not deliberately, but like I tell Keller all the time, right? It might have been an accident, but it's still your fault. Right? You own it.
I would like to also point out, since our gym burned down, there have been 2 new commercial real estate listings.
Right. So it's not exactly a
plethora
stuff, right? And we also don't want somewhere that's crap with maybe a 2 or 3 year commitment on it. So we're cautiously moving forward, but it's summer. We happen to be working on the house and working in the yard, and one of the reasons that we chose this house was it supported our lifestyle. Here we are, out in the country where it's quiet, with phenomenal running, cycling. We have swimming in a 13-acre lake that has no motors allowed on it. We have paddle boards, we have kayaks. We have the ability to run the best CrossFit workouts that you can possibly imagine. So with this new, I mean, this is a new mix for us, right? And we've had plenty of time for introspective while we've had some time off in terms of what we were good at, what we needed to improve at, what we would like to have done more of, what we think the community population requires more of, right? So it's nice to create elite athletes, but 50% of the population is overweight or obese, right? And so it seems that is a much better use of our time to try and make an impact on that population. And I think part of having people exposed to the gym where our family is helps them see when you're working out as a family. You know, so me and Keller going after the BMX track, working out together, you being able to go swim with Layla, all of us being able to spend that time outside on the lake. this is the way that you create a sustainable, healthy lifestyle for your family. Because I think one of the ways to be super healthy, to the detriment of your social health, is to pick something off and go do it on your own. And we've both done that, right? We both did that with Ironman. And we got really healthy. And like many triathletes before us, ultimately you pay for that with your with your marriage, which I can giggle about now, but it wasn't very funny at the time. I distinctly remember that. So that going out and training on your own is a good first step, but training with your family, that is the best way to make it sustainable. And we want to train people to be able to take part in experiences that they will remember for the rest of their lives. I was fortunate enough to do this before I became a CrossFitter, and then realized that CrossFit was the thing that would have enabled me to either do it in the first place or do it better than I was already doing it. So anybody that's had a beer with me and got me talking about my life before I was 40 will have the benefit of some of those stories, and these are the kinds of things that you too should be aiming for. In terms of not those specific stories, because I don't want everybody. Right, the jails are already full. We don't need any more people following down the same track that I did. You get some hobbies that are legal, and go do those. But take your family kayaking, mountain biking, hiking, trail running. Make sure they're all on a bike and using them regularly. We're in one of the best towns in the U.S. for cycling. Not the best. But it's good and it's getting better. And the more it happens, the more people will quit whining about things like bicycle lanes on Rocky Ford, because they'll be using them themselves. Go out and do this stuff with your family, get those memories. But you do not want to be part of a family where the kids want to go on the next roller coaster and mom and dad are so heavy that in order to stop the pain in their knees, they've got to sit down and have an ice cream every 5 minutes. Right? That is not. That's not the way forward. That's not sustainable for your health, for your family, or for the country. Right? So with this kind of broader outlook, we will have not a name change, but we'll be expanding our name. Right? Something that we've looked at before in the past, and we almost have pushed the button on. Was to use our original name, which was the original company name is Trionic Human Performance, and that was the company that was created while I was doing USA triathlon training, bicycle fitting, all that kind of good stuff. We still do all of that, and we have a CrossFit gym that has its own notoriety. So Deathproof CrossFit will always still be around as the CrossFit gym, but the greater portion of the business will become known as Trionic Functional Fitness, because it better reflects the expanded services that we're about to offer people. So there will still be CrossFit classes. There will always be CrossFit classes. There will be a CrossFit gym, but expect to see more high-intensity exercise classes like Shred, which is a just a phenomenal exercise program for beginner and advanced, for those who don't want to have to specifically work with barbells all the time. Then there's our high-intensity rowing classes, which we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff that's going to be heart rate based. So if you've ever seen Orange Theory Fitness and used their systems, this is the model that, you know, all endurance coaches would hope that you would use, which is either heart rate based or power based endurance training. We'll be doing that on rows. We'll be doing that on cycles. We may even get around to doing it by running, which is a more difficult prospect, but we'll see where that goes. So not just CrossFit, but classes that are still high intensity, constantly varied, functional movement. So I guess we're trying to dupe everyone, because you just described CrossFit, but
trickery.
It is trickery, but that, you know,
Rocksteady boxing is CrossFit.
Rocksteady boxing, it is CrossFit, because only that I mean, it's the only thing that gives you optimal fitness. You have to have
intense exercise.
high intensity, constantly varied functional movement. Isolation will not cut it. Incidentally, isolation of muscles is a subject that we're going to be covering in a future podcast. I have gained incredible insight via losing my biceps into isolation of muscles and what we think is isolation and what is not isolation. So the next time you're leaning over the preacher bench, right, doing your biceps curls, thinking you're isolating your biceps, oh buddy, think again. You aren't isolating shit. When this thing lets go, it lets you know exactly what it was connected to. You can lose your biceps and your right balls will start itching. I mean, it should be no surprise that everything in the human body is connected, and I would save you the pain of getting this kind of an injury. But I think it probably serves talking about as the subject of an entire podcast, how losing one particular muscle does not necessarily do what you think it does, does not necessarily handicap you in the way that you would think, and could very well handicap you in ways that you're not thinking about. So it's been very educational and really fucking painful. So yeah, we'll talk about, and at some point I might even talk about how this came about, which is a story in and itself. Right? Anytime you have a thunderstorm with a half-naked guy and a shovel, right, you got a story worth telling, in my mind. So that will again be the subject of a future podcast. So, what is the one thing that was missing from the old gym that you are going to insist that the new gym has?
Selfishly, ski erg.
Ski erg, right?
Obviously.
So this is ground that we've covered before, right? And you know my opinion on this, which is that that it is not, it is a partial functional movement,
Right.
right? And I'm not saying it's not without efficacy, because it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is. But to me, a ski erg is to skiing what a treadmill is to running, and clearly they're not the same thing, right?
Right.
So I guess this is where we differ in our opinion on the subject, right?
Well, I would like to have one for shred class and Rocksteady.
Right, and that's the perfect application for it, right? I would agree with that. But when somebody says ski erg to me, my thought immediately is a set of roller skis and actually go out and do something that looks like skiing. Go somewhere, be in the environment, subject yourself to potential for falling, giving you a balance requirement. Because let's face it, if you fall over on a ski erg, you're a fucking idiot, right? But anyone could fall over while they're skiing.
Process.
Part of the skill is, you're fine, go on in. We're going to edit around a lot of this stuff anyway. So if you fall over while you're on a skier, you're a fucking idiot. Whereas anybody can fall over while they're cross-country skiing. The more you do it, the more you practice, the better your balance becomes, the more capacity you have for changing direction or changing your balance point quicker, and that is part of the skill that I would hope develops. Right? I mean, this is one of the things about a sort of stand-up paddleboard, right? Does a stand-up paddleboard make your arms ache when you're out there?
No.
What's the thing that starts to ache the fastest?
I don't ache when I stand up.
You don't ache at all?
Mm-mm.
So my feet are still the bit that starts to get a little bit sore as you start to move your feet around. I first noticed that when I was windsurfing, because you try to grip that board with your toes. It's not, and to get rid of that feeling is part and parcel of the skill set in my mind. So it's kind of, I like the idea of going and doing this stuff. However, if you're in a class, you can't get somebody to boot up and take a set of skis outside, right? It's just not feasible. What is the thing that we are definitely not going to replace?
The fit bike.
Fit bike, yeah. I mean, the fit bike was useful. We didn't have, I guess, the clientele that required it, or understood how to get the.
Well, once you spend $10,000 on a bike, it's hard to come up with the extra $400 to make it fit right.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. As a bike fitter, I would say, seriously, you're going to spend 10 grand on a pair of shoes?
I was being sarcastic.
You're not. No, but you're right. I mean, bicycle fit is often an afterthought. People use standover height and shit like that for. It's a bit like asking. It's like, hey,
Well,
tell me how tall you are, and I'll tell you how big your feet are. Which clearly there's no formula for that, right? It's the same with a bike.
People get it in their head that they want a certain bike. They don't want to be told what bike they need. They want a certain bike. They go out and buy it, and then they want you to make it work for them.
Yeah.
So it was. It's just not.
I mean,
not a good piece of kit for us.
It's a fascinating. It's a fascinating profession. It is. It's an infuriating profession because the people that will use that kind of high-end bike fit are relatively few and far between. Once you've invested that money into a tool of that type, the tendency for most people, and we didn't fall into this trap, but the tendency for most people is to use that tool as much as possible. And so for me, you see this with the retool guys, and it's like, yeah, we're going to put all of these sensors on you, and we're going to tell you what kind of a bike fit is, and we're going to tell you what kind of bike you should be riding, and it's like what you did was you found out the way that a person's body was working, and now you're going to tell them a more comfortable way to make it work, but you're not going to guide them through the process of optimizing their performance on a machine. And there's always the assumption that that bike is the basis for your performance, and that should not be the case, right? What you should do is you should make your body into a bicycle propelling machine. And as you travel along that path and your body makes those changes, you will need different bikes to accommodate your pedal stroke and give you optimal performance at each of those points. But it's a process. It is not here's the type of bike you need and you will need that kind of bike forever. And that's an unfortunate side effect of buying really expensive pieces of equipment and using it on a population of relatively few athletes. And every time we go past transition, I can point out bikes that are clearly not being used as the designer intended, right? And saying, well, this bike is adjustable. I'm not gonna. That's the whole point of an adjustable bike, is I don't need to use it as the way that the designer intended. You got to understand, the designer understood his remit pretty well, right? And if to me, it's no different than pissing in a kettle, right? It's like you got a guy who makes toilets for a living, and he will decide the best kind of toilet for you. And there's a guy who makes kettles for heating water, and he will decide the best type of vessel for heating your water. But just because you can piss in a kettle does not automatically make it a toilet. And just because you can ride this bike of this size does not mean it is the optimal machine to get the best performance out of you. Particularly remembering guys like triathletes are trying to, they're not just looking for cycling performance, but also for residual running performance afterwards. So, I could go on and will forever on that subject.
So the bike,
we'll make
the fit bike's out.
So the fit bike is out, right? So that's another 10 grand in kettlebells that you can buy. I think that thing is 12 grand now anyway. And they don't even make that CompuTrainer anymore, which is a shame. But we don't care, because we'll probably go Watt bike or something like that.